Welcome to the Fitness Professional Online Radio Show, where you get access to fitness industry news, tips, and insights from professionals around the world. Visit us at fitnessprofessionalonline.com. And now your host, Doug Holt.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Fitness Professional Online Radio Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, and I'm happy to be with you here today. We have a great show for you today. We have an interview with Ken Baldwin, and before we get into that, I want to let you know of a few updates. If I'm talking a little fast, it's just because I had my coffee, so I'm ready to go. Just got back from a great weekend up the coast in California in Big Sur. Great mastermind meeting. Had a lot of great new business ideas and kind of breaking those down through the industry. A special shout out to the chiropractor on the trip. You know who you are, Christian. That was a great talk we had, and I look forward to a lot of things in the future, which we'll be sharing online. And you'll see in the new October issue some of the stuff that I was talking about with a mastermind group is prepping for the holidays. Even though we're coming in here to October as health and fitness practitioners, it's really important to gear your marketing and your plan. You already should have one, but if you don't, really hone that in for the holidays and coming into the new year. It's always better than rushing into it and kind of guessing what you want to do when it happens. Kind of that, oh shoot, it's November, oh shoot, it's December. So we'll have that on fitnessprofessionalonline.com. We'll share with you some of our masterminds ideas. Got approval from that group to do so. But let's get into the interview. This is a great one. Ken Baldwin joined the State University of New York Plattsburgh's Department of Sports and Wellness as an assistant professor and the program coordinator for the Fitness and Wellness Leadership major in August of 2007. Prior to working at SUNY Plattsburgh, Ken was the coordinator and instructor for Purdue University's Personal Fitness Training major and the assistant director at Purdue's A&H Ishmael Fitness Research Center. Ken has received national recognition from numerous media outlets, including Newsweek, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, Indianapolis Star, Athletic Business, WRTV TV6, NBC.com, The Associated Press, IDEA, New York Newsday, Club Industry, IRSA, and Personal Fitness Professional for establishing academic programs and degrees focusing on fitness, exercise science, and the personal training profession. In addition, Ken is the exercise director for the National Posture Institute, the MPI, an educational and professional organization that provides certificate programs for personal trainers, group instructors, and allied medical and fitness professionals to receive the National Posture Institute's Certified Posture Specialist designation. MPI is dedicated to delivering to personal trainers and current allied health medical fitness professionals the collegiate educational system, the media and general public information education on posture and body alignment through innovative educational resources, teaching business solutions, courses, and the MPI Certified Posture Specialist. The National Posture Institute website, which will be in our show notes, Ken has been involved in the fitness, wellness, and educational profession for over 15 years. With an extensive background in the fitness industry, which includes operating and managing a personal training company to training many types of populations from children to seniors and beginning exercisers to athletes, to lecturing and consulting at the college, university departments, corporations, public events, national conventions, ACSM, Health and Fitness Summit, Club Industry, Idea World Conferences, the AAHPERD, Canadian Fitness Professional Conference, and the Medical Fitness Association, to name a few, and international conferences. That's a mouthful. In addition to his industry experience, he is actively involved in working with national organizations and colleges and universities in developing educational standards for those wishing to enter the personal training and fitness profession. Ken is also the former chair of IDEA's National Personal Trainer Committee, chair of the Senior Fitness Subcommittee for the Massachusetts Governor's Committee on Physical Fitness and Sport, and was an elected board member to the Massachusetts Governor's Committee. He has served on national committees with organizations that include the American College of Sports Medicine, Life Fitness Academy, AAHPERD, and the Medical Fitness Association. He's been awarded Boston's Best Personal Trainer 3 times and is a recipient of IDEA's National Personal Trainer of the Year. Ken is the senior editor, content expert, and lead author for ACSM's research on personal trainer textbook, 2nd edition. What a mouthful, Ken. You've done just about everything. Let's get Ken on the call. Hi, Ken. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I know you've done so much in the industry, but for those that don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself and your path in the fitness industry and how you got where you are today.
Sure. Well, I'm a full-time assistant professor at the State University of New York, and I oversee an undergraduate degree program in fitness and wellness leadership. And I'd say about 1/3 of our students are interested in becoming personal trainers or group exercise instructors. The other third are interested in going into physical therapy or chiropractic. And then the other third are interested in becoming athletic trainers and getting into sports conditioning. And prior to being at SUNY, I was at Purdue University, where I put together Purdue's first 4-year degree program in personal training. And then prior to Purdue, I was at San Diego State University and put together San Diego State University's personal training certificate program, which was a short 6-month program. And before working in academia, I owned my own personal training business. And I had about 15 trainers that worked for me that ranged from working with young children to older adults. And we worked with corporate executives to college and professional athletes. And each staff member had unique backgrounds and their own history, where we had physical therapists and staff, trainers that had cardiac rehab specialization, and then we had trainers that could work with all these different types of age groups and different levels. And that's a little bit of my background.
So you went from owning your own business, which I can relate to being very difficult, to academia and running these programs and kind of shaping the industry. What made you make that leap?
Well,
how did you decide to?
Sure, that's a great question. Well, when I was running the personal training business, I had a great opportunity to work at the state level and chair the senior fitness subcommittee for the Massachusetts Governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. I made a lot of connections there with that committee and the board that I was on, and that led to an opportunity through IDEA. And I'm sure you're familiar with IDEA. They're based in San Diego, and they have 20,000 personal trainers and group exercise instructors. And that opportunity led me into chairing their National Personal Trainer Committee. And the opportunity to go into academia really kind of led from IDEA based in San Diego to that opportunity at San Diego State University.
Okay. Now, I definitely understand where both of those are. And I'm very familiar with actually the San Diego State University program. I went through something similar at the University of California, Santa Barbara when it first came out. But that was back in the late 90s, dating myself a little bit. So I was very familiar with that program as well, and I know you did a good job of that. Give me kind of the day-to-day life, and I know there's never a typical day, and everybody always says that. I'm certainly not one in my life, but with all that you're doing, what could somebody that's listening to this has no idea what to expect in the academic background or in the subcultures that all the things that you're developing? Give me a day in the life of Ken.
Sure. Well, every day starts off usually really early in the morning. I'd say 5:30, between 5:30 and 6. And a typical day could be, and I usually do most of my early writing early in the morning, and that's when I'm most creative. So I might be working on an article, or we're working on a textbook right now for the organization. And, it's usually using my creative stuffs early in the morning. And then when I get to the university, anything can happen. Usually there could be committee meetings. I could have meetings with students. And of course, depending on the semester, I'm going to be teaching anywhere from 3 to 4 classes each semester. And I also oversee all the students' clinical rotations. And our degree program is really unique. And students, when they get into the junior or third year in the degree program, they actually spend every semester they're in a clinical rotation. So we have students that are in a cardiac rehab setting, physical therapy setting. They may be at a sports performance clinic, either on campus or off-site. So I'm usually in communication with each of the directors at our clinical sites, making sure our students are doing well. And then we've got a lot of stuff going on at the university, whether it's research or committee or curriculum committees or educational meetings. And we're working on creating some online master degree programs right now, too, in fitness and exercise science.
That's fantastic. And besides all that, you also, of course, have MPI, right?
Yes. Yeah. So for the National Posture Institute, usually I'll work those type of things later on in the day, anywhere from like 4 o'clock on, and usually, depending on the weeknight, kind of late into the night, actually. And then on the weekends, too, I might be working on some stuff for National Posture Institute. And then we have conferences that we're at. We're at a lot of different conferences. We might be a club industry conference or IRSA or Ideas Conference or SCW or DCAC. So we present on-site workshops at different conferences, and then we may go into facilities like health clubs or physical therapy clinics or medically based fitness facilities where we do training and education on-site as well. So my days are pretty busy, I'd say.
I'd say too. I'd say your weeks are pretty busy.
Very much.
That's the job of 4 people right there. A true entrepreneur. I love it. Well, tell me a little bit about the National Posture Institute. How'd that come about, and how did you kind of narrow your focus on posture in particular?
Posture goes way back to when I was doing my personal training and when I first started after college. And it's one thing that I noticed early on. Actually, when I was a student in college, I noticed a lot of my friends, either in my classes or on the sports teams, that had issues with posture and body alignment. And when I started exercising, I really made sure that when I first started practicing and learning all these different exercise movements, that I didn't really worry so much about the weight, but I was kind of working on making sure that I could feel the muscle groups working properly. So if I was doing a dumbbell chest press, I may not be using 50 pounds, but I may be using 20-pound dumbbells, going through the movements slowly and practicing. So for myself, I noticed early on other people performing exercise movements that weren't in good, what I would say good alignment. I was only 18 or 19 years old at the time, but just noticing that. And then when I started training my clients and seeing clients come to us from different age groups, like working with, let's say, a 10 or 12-year-old or an older adult, I noticed that everybody had some type of postural issue, whether it was forward head protrusion, a rounded back, or we call it an exaggerated kyphotic curve, or if somebody had a lot of internal rotation in their shoulders. Well, I noticed when I would teach an exercise movement, I try to get them in a correct position or correct postural alignment as they performed one repetition. But as soon as they performed that one repetition after I'd had them in good alignment, I noticed their body would revert back to that poor alignment. So rather than letting them continue repetition after repetition in that poor alignment, I would make those mental and physical adjustments in their body as they were performing each repetition. So then from there, I started incorporating and developing a posture assessment type portion based on ACSM guidelines. So I kind of added that into the fold, and then all the trainers and staff and physical therapists and others in the organization, we started really developing a detailed posture assessment program. So for the National Posture Institute, this organization is made up of colleagues of mine from different college universities that focus on research in biomechanics and kinesiology on posture assessments and how to perform all of these various exercise movements, whether you're using free weights, tubing, cable machines, body weight exercises, if you're using selectorized strength training machines, or if you're performing Olympic lifts, whatever the exercise movement or rehab type movement pattern, we've broken down and analyzed it for the exact position you need to be in to make sure the muscles are activating well, and at the same time, the posture and body alignment are being corrected at the same moment.
So this goes way beyond the typical core involvement when you're talking about this. You actually have a standardized procedure to activate the muscles and get the exact results and keep people, I guess, which is neutral spine or natural posture.
Exactly. So we need to identify first the alignment issues that the person has. So from head to toe. Then from there, since we know where their strengths and weaknesses are and where our ideal alignment would be for that individual, then the exercises that we select, we want to make sure that, one, we're not teaching them a complicated exercise movement first, because we want them to memorize movement patterns, lock those in, and as they start to memorize these movement patterns, their neurological system starts to improve and get better. So the goal is that client or patient that somebody's working with, that professional, that client or patient, their body eventually will know when they're in good posture and when they're out of good posture. And that's really kind of the neat thing about it. And so as their posture improves, the muscles are going to develop really, really well and balance. So we found when we're working with, we could be working with an 8 or 9-year-old child to an older adult to a college or professional athlete, that everyone has postural issues. And especially, as you know, we may only be working with our clients or our sports team, so many days a week in a strength training facility or health club or physical therapy clinic or wherever your setting's at. So we need to also teach our clients or patients what they need to do during the day when they're sitting at their desk, what they do for all their activities of daily living and making sure they're doing them safely. So we really kind of look at a holistic approach. Not only are we teaching them how to perform all these exercise movements, strength training movements, but we're also teaching them concepts that they can work on so they can work on their posture and body alignment outside the facility.
That's fantastic. So you're actually giving them homework for them to take to their actual daily lives. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it. And so it's a whole plan that they work on outside the facility, and they're working on it 24 hours a day. We're giving them guidelines on how to sit, safest positions for them to sit, positions if they're doing gardening, when they're brushing their teeth in the morning and washing their face, positions they should be in when they're coughing or sneezing so they don't, injure their back from all the force when they're sneezing, hurt their ribs, all those types of, and of course they're not taught in one session. If you're working on developing a strong client base and you're working with people, the relationships that I had when I was doing my personal training, let's say back in 1995, well, from 1995 through 2000, the majority of the clients that I got in 1995, I was still training them in 2000 when I moved to San Diego to go teach at San Diego State University. So I really kind of prided myself on the fact that I was always educating that client every time they came into the facility, and they always knew that they were learning something new, and they were always improving at something. And those are the things that we teach people that go through our educational programs, whether they're my students at the university or they go through a National Posture Institute educational program. We're very heavy into education, and that the person, when they're coming to each session, they're learning something new.
Oh, I applaud you. So you must cringe every time you go into a
Yeah, I really do. It can be quite scary. And I'll just add this too, Doug. It's not only personal trainers, but it's also physical therapists too. Even though somebody's gone through, let's say, a doctor or physical therapy program, it doesn't mean that they were taught how to perform all these detailed movements. You really have to love what you're doing, and it takes a lot of practice for that practitioner to get good at doing all these movements, to be able to get good at it themselves, to be able to teach it. So when I go into a facility, it could be going into a 24-hour fitness, or I could be going into a medically based fitness facility. It doesn't matter what level. There's always issues with staff, and everyone comes from a different educational background. Somebody could come from having multiple certifications, and somebody could have a master's or PhD in exercise science, but everybody's different in how they've learned information. And some people might be good at teaching movements, being good at performing movements themselves, or they may not be. And I found in general, 10% of the population is really good at performing all of these detailed exercise movements or rehab movements. So it's a small percentage. And my goal is that 100% of health fitness professionals and personal trainers and group exercise instructors eventually learn how to teach these movements really well, so they're not hurting people over the course of their career, but helping them.
Oh, man. Yeah, I love it. Are you finding more and more, Ken, that because of our lifestyles, we're at the computer more often, we're sitting down in the car more often, that postural defects are coming up more commonly, or is this something that you've always seen and it's just kind of status quo?
Yeah, we really track the research studies on that. So it's amazing the amount of injuries that are happening just from sitting during the day. And it's really, in a way, if you think about it this way, let's say you graduate college and you're 22 years old and you're an accounting major, and then you take the CPA exam, and then you're a CPA. If you can imagine, if you've already got forward head protrusion, we find that, let's say you're right-handed and your right shoulder is 2 or 3 inches lower than your left because you use a mouse. And then you start using a touchpad maybe when you're traveling. So you've got a lot of internal rotation in your shoulders. And then you're in this exaggerated kyphotic curve. Well, the majority of the musculoskeletal injuries that the U.S. population has to deal with is pretty much due to sitting all day long. So we really need to, when we do and I'll go through it a little bit later, but our posture assessments, we have to analyze people when they're sitting, because the majority of the musculoskeletal diseases and issues come from sitting. So if you're in San Diego or California and you only need to drive 5 or 6 miles, let's say during rush hour, that could take maybe an hour, right?
Absolutely.
So imagine you're that accountant and you've been sitting for 8 or 9 hours, and then you're like, oh my gosh, now I got to go home. I'm going from downtown San Diego to Del Mar, let's say, Del Mar Beach. And then they're going to be in the car for an hour. So there's another hour added on, and another hour where the muscle structures are working isometrically. And if you're not in good alignment and you're in incorrect posture, then those muscles are working isometrically to reinforce muscular imbalances. And then from those muscular imbalances, they're going to start shifting the skeletal structure and joint structure into these poorer positions as one gets older. So over time, you can look at somebody that might have great posture when they're 22, have them sit for, 20 years, now they're 42, and their alignment can change drastically.
Wow. I know everybody listening to this, including myself, just stood up and just moved their body around.
That's funny That's funny that you said that, because that's one of the things that we're working on is, okay, how much time are you sitting during the day? And then let's look at ways in which we can have you standing during the day, getting your computer monitor to a new height, getting your phone at a new height so that you're standing for, let's say, 3 or 4 hours out of the day while you're typing and doing your work. And then let's say you're spending 3 or 4 hours sitting, let's say on a stability ball. So we're looking at developing a program for people that are office workers or even for like ourselves. We're active individuals, but a certain portion of the day you're working on administration, you're working on, filling out your client forms and tracking all the exercise programs. You might be doing some social media stuff, keeping in touch with your clients. So you may be on the computer 3 or 4 hours a day yourself, plus your 6 or 7 hours of personal training. So we're trying to look right now at varying up the day and looking at sitting and standing positions and some other variables in there will make it more fun than just standing on 2 feet, but changing the variables around so you can have some fun activities at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, in my training practice, I specialize in entrepreneurs and business owners, and I'm seeing more and more with the executives, them investing in treadmill desks and standing desks, where
yes. Mm-hmm.
Back in, internet boom, when I did consulting for internet companies, everybody was sitting on stability balls.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a trend going anywhere today, or any specific recommendations or any take-home points that somebody listening to this that might be doing a lot more admin than they may want to do? Which direction should they go?
I think that this brings up a great subject, because the people that are listening out there that are personal trainers, this is a great opportunity for you to start working in corporate wellness and communicating with human resource departments on providing exercise plans and programs, and then learning about ergonomics and basic ergonomics and ergonomics of sitting. So some of the things that I would look at are how many hours of that person sitting. And then I do an evaluation of their sitting environment, where the computer monitor is, if they're using a touchpad, what type of mouse are they using, the sitting position. So we have to look at how to analyze that. And some of the things that we're looking at, like I think those things that you were talking about are great concepts of standing during the day and looking at having treadmills put in with appropriate desk attachments to that and the volume of treadmill walking. And I know that some of the large insurance companies like Blue Cross and Blue Shield in Massachusetts, they actually have 2 or 3 treadmills on a couple of their floors where the employees get a chance to kind of reserve the treadmill for 30 minutes at different points of the day and do their work. So they log in and then they use that computer monitor and do their work and walk on it. And it's really become very popular at that Blue Cross and Blue Shield in Massachusetts. So I think those are some great things that you bring up, things that allow you to burn some calories during the day and also protect yourself from being in this kind of stationary static position at your computer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, when you guys are if I were to be, let's say, doing an assessment with a client, do I do each client the same assessment, or do I vary the assessments based on that client and that client's needs?
I think that's a good question. I'll give you an example. We like to keep the basic concepts pretty similar, but it'll change if we were working with an athlete. So if we're working with an athlete, we may do some more advanced posture assessments and range of motion testing for that athlete. But everyone will go through that first baseline kind of structured assessments. And we kind of look at some static assessments, like doing a standard standing static assessment, where we'll look at the anterior, posterior, and lateral views. And we have some really detailed assessment sheets which we'll go through and mark that up. And this takes a lot of time, too. It's not something where all of a sudden you just kind of start doing posture assessments. It takes a lot of detailed thought process of what you're looking at and understanding all the muscle structures of, which ones are shortened, which ones are lengthened. Where is the shoulder joint? Where is it located right now? If it's dropped down a little bit, is it at a diagonal going across the person's body? There's all these different things that we're looking at as we kind of work our way down from the head down to the feet. And then from there, from doing that standing posture assessment, you could look at doing some seated posture assessments, having that person sit in a chair and taking some photos of them, let's say, of where their posture is when they're seated. So usually what we'll do is we have some nice posture grids. We have posture grids where you can kind of put them against the wall with grommets and have it hanging there, or we have posture grids you can purchase, and they have like a banner stand so you can carry it with you to doing if you go to somebody's home or to a company or corporation, you bring that with you so that you can have the clients or that you're working with go against the posture and take pictures of them in that seated or standing position. And you really want to capture those early on in the training sessions. You don't want to wait till a week or two later. And the reason is because we're pretty confident that within that first week of doing the personal training sessions, you should start to see posture changes already in the clients that you're working with. So you want to take those pictures as early on as possible.
Okay, so you're actually going to start seeing improvements almost immediately.
Yes. So
okay.
you don't want to miss one day and say, oh my gosh, I forgot my camera, and start telling them the concepts that they need to work on. You want to have your camera ready, have your grid ready, and dedicate that time towards that. And then the posture assessments can get even more detailed from that. So we have some posture assessment software that we can take pictures of the client and then put those into this really pretty incredible software that will measure all the deviations or different angles that person's off from their line of gravity. So from line of gravity, we know that we're kind of connecting from the external auditory meatus to the acromion process down through sacrum or S2, then passed around the center of the hip joint, then down to the knee and ankle. But it's really rare that, you're going to have something that's going to have perfect line of gravity. And we base everything off of that line of gravity. So if you have forward head protrusion, a little bit exaggerated kyphotic curve, it's going to create all these angles that we can calculate out. And so there's something we create, it's called a posture number. And if somebody has ideal posture, their line of gravity is going to be at 0. So there's 0 degrees of deviation throughout, that person through all three planes. But that's pretty rare. Now, I'll give you an idea. The majority of the population, their posture number falls between 35 to 45. That's how bad, worldwide people's posture is. But what's kind of neat is, let's say you had a client and their posture number was at 35, and, you've identified that in the very first assessment session that you're working with them. And then let's say 2 weeks later, you retake your photos, you log them into the software, you kind of connect all these dots, and then you find that they went from a 35 posture number, and now they're down to, let's say, a 27 or a 28. So that's really neat. So where I kind of see the future going is that we need to quantify our results as personal trainers and fitness professionals to be able to not only show on a scale or through skin calipers somebody getting toned or fit, but really being able to calculate some of these, kind of unique numbers and saying, look, you started at 35 when we first started, and now 1 year later, you're in the low teens. You're like at 13, 14 now. And now our goal is to get you down to the single digit numbers, because really the way we kind of present the information, if you can teach somebody to be in good posture and body alignment when they're exercising, when they're sitting, when they're doing their activities of daily living and all that sort of stuff, the chances of them ever getting injured should be 0. If you teach them how to do all these things, and when I mean 0, the only way they're going to get hurt is if they're an athlete and they're out in the field performing their sport. Yeah, they might get hurt during that activity, but I'm going to make sure that they're not getting hurt in the strength training or exercise area when they're doing their activities of daily living. So they might get hurt out in the field or on the courts, but they're not going to get hurt from that professional teaching them all this information.
Absolutely. And it's got to limit their chances of injury on the field, having that correct posture throughout the day.
Yeah.
Stress on their body.
Yeah, and that's right. Oh, and one thing I was going to mention I'm really psyched about this. With our degree program, I've been working on kind of cultivating this relationship with the United States Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid. So we actually signed this past spring an agreement with them so our students can intern there. But since that time, what we've had their operations director and their lead sport physiologist come to our campus and do some really great open lectures to our campus. And then we took a field trip down to Lake Placid and got a chance to tour their strength training facilities, their living quarters, and their cafeteria, which is open 24 hours a day, and they've got the best, healthiest food you've ever seen. Like, you can sit there all day and just eat with them, and it's great. But we get a chance to see from their lead sport physiologist all the types of Olympic training lifts and the angles and the biomechanics in which they try to get the athlete in. And they're very keen on posture and body alignment, because they realize that in order for an athlete to gain power, strength, and speed, if they're not in good alignment, they can't really achieve those results.
It makes complete sense, though, biomechanically. You brought up a point earlier about the photography and the software. If I was, or somebody listening to this was certified as a posture specialist, is this something they can actually conduct the assessments online or remotely by having somebody else take the pictures? Maybe a husband or a wife?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, so they can do it on site or they can do it online. And I've actually been doing posture assessments online. I think it's been about 14 years. So around 1998, 99, because of the results that I was having with the clients back in Cambridge, a lot of the clients that I had, they have family members, of course, around the entire United States. So their family members started taking pictures, and of course, a lot of people didn't have digital cameras, of course, and uploading the cameras and emailing them. So they would take pictures of themselves against a grid, and then they would mail those to me, and I would assess them. And I would put together an exercise program or plan that they could then work on over a 4-week period of time, and then they'd take a new set of pictures, send them to me, and then I'd evaluate them. And then getting into 2000, 2001, then, I was kind of doing away with the mail thing, and people would take pictures and then email them in. So a lot of our certified posture specialists can not only do it on site, but online. And not only for individuals, but you could do it online for an entire company or organization that has sites, maybe they want to make sure that everyone that's not living in their main city where their organization is, they might have offices in other cities, but they want to get those employees assessed as well and have them involved in a program that they can work on.
That's a great point. We get a lot of questions about online training, and one of the things that's come up with some of my clients that are executives at larger companies, for the HR department, they have to offer the same quality of service or service offerings to all of their offices. And that's been a barrier of entry to some of the trainers that have written in about corporate wellness. So it sounds to me, Ken, like if somebody went through your certification, they could then actually assess people across the United States and across the world, and therefore the HR departments can offer that service to everybody anywhere. And a trainer that's got more of an entrepreneurial spirit can actually pick that up.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, it's just it's a great way for you to kind of supplement your income and also offer a new service. So let's say you only want to train somebody 5 hours per day, and the rest of the time you want to be at home with your family. And so these are some things that you can do right at home from a home office or, within your office at work to be able to have something that you can work on and build a business around that. And the one thing I'd like to add to it too is because you're working with companies, it sounds like too, and executives, that when we look at musculoskeletal disease and how it fits into the kind of the health spectrum these days, in the past, usually it would be heart disease and diabetes and things with blood pressure and high cholesterol. That's where your majority of your healthcare expenses would go. But now over the last 6 or 7 years, musculoskeletal disease is now moving closer towards that number one spot in most companies and organizations in the United States. So if you look at getting yourself educated and learning how to do posture assessments, if you were to go through our educational program, you're really positioning yourself to expand your opportunities to work with not only the folks in the health club and fitness facilities, but also branch out and work with companies and corporations too.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, I think I have 18 different certifications at this point. And
oh my gosh.
But I've never found anything like what you and your colleagues have put together. I love the idea that it's a complete assessment package along with a protocol to help people. And posture is something that myself and my staff and the trainers I talk to regularly deal with on a daily basis. And it's hard to actually, I've found at least, it's been difficult to come up with an exact procedure and then to give subsequent homework, what I call homework or exercises for them to do at home. And it sounds like that's something you guys have really kind of nailed down.
Yeah, we really kind of think outside the box and put ourselves in the position of that employee or that mom that's at home or that, that child that's trying to work on their posture and body alignment and try to make the education so that it can go across all these different age groups and different types of populations. And I think, and one of the nice things is with technology, we're able to work on improving our information, our content, develop new programs coming up in the future that we're working on. And so I think, I'm pretty excited where we're at and where things are going. And I think we position ourselves nicely for, I think, working with one of the number one healthcare costs going out there, and that's musculoskeletal disease and being able to help people with it. I can tell you, and you're probably familiar with this, a lot of the population lives in pain. They may have pain in their neck or their middle back or their lower back. And when you start working with them on getting their alignment improved, those pain or achy pain areas usually tend to start going away. And it just makes people happy. And I think one of the things is with just working with one client, that's where you can really start to grow out and expand your, let's say you're only training 10 or 15 sessions a week. It can really help you. If you want to train 30 or 40 sessions a week, it will help get you there.
Absolutely. Well, I, for one, am definitely going to go check out more of the education on your website. I love your website. There's a lot of information on there to digest. I'll put a link in the show notes and on our website so people can go there and directly check that out and get more information from Ken and his team there. Ken, where do you see as a professor, where do you see the education of trainers going in the next, 5 to 10 years or so?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I get asked that a lot. I'm really excited where things are going right now. For our degree program, it's really unique. We only actually allow 20 students into our degree program every year. And we're getting over 200 applications, and we're just getting some really great students coming in where they have high GPAs, high SAT scores. They're just really well-rounded kids. And I'd say 20 or 25% of them are athletes too. So they're really bright. And for our university, I'm just really happy where we're at. And the reason why the degree is unique is because we really try to get them hands-on early on in the degree program. We don't wait. Most exercise science degree programs, students don't actually take exercise physiology or movement courses until their third year. We actually created our degree structure so that students start learning and practicing assessments and movements, and we teach them how to do these exercises in their freshman year, first semester. Yeah, so I actually just got through finishing up on Monday our posture assessments for the entire freshman class. Next week, we're going to start going into the facility and starting to practice those movements. They already know where their weaknesses are. The students will go into the fitness center and have all their pictures taken early next week. And so that we work this whole semester in helping them get their alignment better. And at the same time, we're teaching them a beginning library of exercise that they learn to refine and practice and get really good at, so that when we get into next year and the year after that, we start building on that exercise library so they get really good at performing the movements. But just to add, we have them get certified by ACSM in their second year and during their winter break. So when they come back in their third year in the degree program, we have them actually train a faculty or staff member at the university for every semester thereafter. So they train a new faculty or staff member for the next 2 years. So they may be training their biology professor, their math professor, maybe we have them take business course. They might be training their marketing professor. So they train somebody new every semester for about 15 to 16 weeks. Then they go through that whole cycle of assessments, reassessments, exercise program design for them completely. And then they also go through and they go into a clinical setting rotation starting their junior year. So they might spend 16 weeks in cardiac rehab where they actually get to sit in surgery and watch a quadruple bypass take place. The surgeon will stand there, hold the heart, point out all the valves, and it's just amazing. Students that are in our physical therapy setting, they may be able to go into surgery and see an ACL surgery take place, a hip replacement, rotator cuff tear surgery, Tommy John surgery taking place, as well as not only seeing the surgery, but then they see the patient, a couple weeks later in rehab in that clinic. Our students can go into an older adult setting, working with older adults, children's fitness. They can go into our athletic training area where they get a chance to be under the auspices of our licensed athletic trainers, and they get to work on rehabbing the athletes coming back from injury. Our students that are really mature, they may be able to oversee the entire exercise program and sports conditioning program for a team during their off season. So one of my students right now is overseeing the entire lacrosse team. So their sports in the spring, but he's getting up early in the morning, seeing the entire team, making sure they're working out, increasing their speed, strength, and agility. They just get all these awesome opportunities. So what I've seen from a national level is that the degree programs are starting to change so that students are starting to now take these early on activity or practical type courses early on in their degree and not waiting till the end like their junior or senior year.
Yeah, it's aligning with their passion and they're kind of the reason why they're getting into the industry rather than waiting, 2-3 years later. It seems so intuitive.
Yes. And it takes so long to learn and get good at these thousands of exercise movements that you can learn. It's,
absolutely.
Right? It's not like a golf swing where you have one movement you're trying to memorize, but, hundreds of them.
Why do you think it's taken so long for anybody else to grasp that?
The degree structure, the way things are.
Yeah, absolutely. The way you guys have it set up, introducing students right away to the assessments and the exercises and getting their hands dirty, so to speak.
I had to go back and actually I did a lot of research of how degree programs are structured going back to the 1940s and 50s and 60s. And they really originated with physical education type degrees. And then from there, they started expanding into exercise physiology with a lot of research. So there are a lot of research-laden professors at these universities with less of that kind of practitioner or practical skill set that they had learned previous to becoming a professor. So with having a lot of professors focusing on research and not really having a background in movement, that skill set was usually missing. So that's where a lot of colleges now are looking to, in a way, looking for local personal trainers, probably that have a minimum degree of a master's degree, where they can come in and maybe teach a personal training course to their students that are maybe in an exercise science or exercise physiology degree. So they may only have one course in it, but it's better than having no courses, because I reviewed a lot of degree programs around the United States, probably over 400 degree programs. I looked at every single state and looked at all their strengths and weaknesses. And when I went through, I found almost half of the exercise science degrees didn't really even have one practical, what I would say a resistance training or strength training course required in that degree.
Wow, that's shocking.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it that there was not one course like that for an entire 4-year degree program.
Well, I mean, the reason we're doing things is probably why you're turning away 90% of the applicants.
Yeah, I know the word is spreading, and we're getting applications from not only where we're based in New York, upstate New York, but we're getting them from all over now, so and internationally too.
Personal note, as a West Coast guy in San Diego, is it a hard transition making it to the East Coast?
Yeah, it would be, especially where we're at. I'd like to invite you out here, but the only time I think you'd feel comfortable out here would be between late May, and I'd say late September. I think it was the second year I was here. It got to down below 20 degrees in October, and it never got higher than that until late March or April. It was one of the coldest winters, and it can get down to 0 here, and with the wind, it can be in the minus 10 to minus 20 degrees. So I remember living on San Diego, and I think the lowest it ever got was maybe 45 or 50 around December. And but pretty much it was always around that 65, 70 range most of the time.
San Diego dares go out at that weather.
No, you wouldn't like it. But you know, one thing that's pretty cool is that the athletes at Lake Placid, they come from all around the United States, so they have to get used to it pretty quickly. They have to get used to it, the cold weather.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I mean, that's great. I don't want to keep you. I know you have a million things to go, but can you leave the listeners here with what's next for Ken? Where do you see yourself going, 5 years from now as well? And what can you leave them with?
Sure. I love being at the university I'm at, and I see us really moving forward overall with our department. We're working on creating some master's degree programs. We're looking at partnering with some different organizations to provide a really nice educational platform for everybody. And then for the National Posture Institute, I mean, I think really the sky's the limit. There's new things happening every day. More people are learning about us. They're becoming more interested, and not only professionals like personal trainers, but group exercise instructors, Pilates and yoga. They're getting more interested. Athletic trainers are starting to say, you know what, I need to start looking at doing some posture assessments for my athletes before I start training them. So we're seeing that come on board too. And for our workshops, we've gotten those approved through the National Athletic Training Association. Our workshop's been approved by, I think, 10 physical therapy states like Florida and Texas physical therapy and things like that. And I think we've been approved by about 10 personal training type organizations too. So I just see things growing really very quickly. And we're looking at all sorts of things. We're looking at clothing and shoes and software and ways to test and analyze balance and stability based on somebody's posture and body alignment. Looking at testing muscle structures for integrity and for quality, and making sure that if the muscles are being trained and developed, that they're being trained and developed evenly and balanced, so that that entire muscle structure, like the latissimus dorsi, that every square inch of that is developed fully. So we're looking at everything right now, and as far as assessments go, for performance, for ergonomics, and making sure that people stay healthy.
For those listening, go check out Ken at mpionline.org. And where else can they find you, Ken?
Also, we have a pretty strong Facebook presence, so you can go to the National Posture Institute's Facebook. We also have a blog. We have monthly webinars that take place, so if you want to tune in and attend a lecture or presentation and you're a busy person, you can sign up for our webinars. We have a newsletter, too, that you can sign up on, so that way you can kind of keep in touch of the different activities that we're working on. And also, if you're interested ever in attending an on-site workshop, our schedules is uploaded there. If you're a facility like a YMCA or health club or a college recreational center and you'd like to have us come in and do a posture continuing education workshop at your facility so that your staff can get their continuing education credits, and you want to have physical therapists and athletic trainers also get their CCs, then you can have us host a workshop at your facility. And then, of course, you can go through our online education, too. We've been heavily involved in online education, so we have all of our programs available through online education. And we have a lot of DVDs that we've come out with, too. Some resistance training DVDs, some goniometry DVDs, things like that. So you can always do that. And then if you need to contact me via email, you can always reach me at ken@npionline.org and, send me a note or send me a message if you have any questions.
Great, and I'll put all that on our site, too, so those of you that are on the treadmill or driving in the car right now, just log on to fitnessprofessionalonline.com, and I'll have all those lined up for Ken, so you guys can all get a hold of him. And then, Ken, hopefully I'll talk to you into getting out to Santa Barbara sometime and working with our staff. I'd love to have you out here.
That sounds great, Doug. Thanks. I really appreciate you having me on board for your show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, likewise. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Ken, for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Very impressed with all you've done and all you're doing in the industry to raise the bar. Can't thank you enough from all of us here at Fitness Professional Online and everybody else in the fitness industry. That's it for this show. I'm off to a backpacking trip up in Mammoth Mountain. I wish you all the best and enjoy your week.
Thank you for listening to the Fitness Professional Online Radio Show. You can share your thoughts and join the discussion on this episode by going to our website or on facebook.com/fitproonline. Let us know what you'd like to hear on future shows. And please feel free to contact us via email or give us a call at 805-500-6893. We look forward to hearing from you.